But also, like, I'm sorry, Krystal Ball, with all due respect, and she is a friend of mine. I live in Queens. I live in Astoria. I'm literally half a mile away from where the first Amazon headquarters was going to be. You know who was the biggest advocate for that? AOC. You know who was not there? You. So if you sit here and you're playing who gets to be a progressive, queen or not, and you're more interested in knocking down the few allies we have, I'd like to know, where were you in Bernie 2016? Where were you in Bernie 2016? It's always convenient.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
2016. How and be the progressive purist?
Yeah, well, look, I mean,
do that.
It's a branding exercise for a show.
Like, I'm over it. It's just ripping apart the left.
But my point is just,
it's Roger Ailes politics, though. I'm going to continue.
It's just ripping apart the left. I can't believe she would engage in this leftist infighting. As I continue the leftist infighting and scold a fellow leftist, how dare you scold leftists as I scold you intensely? So there's more of this. We're going to continue watching in a second, but just to address a few things she said here before I forget them, the Amazon warehouse or the headquarters rather, that AOC successfully prevented from being built in New York City, that was in 2019. Again, it's 2022 now. Maybe we should have an example from more than like 2.5 to 3 years ago if you really want to point to her, progressive bona fides. And also, AOC is a congresswoman, a literal politician who was elected by a progressive base of working people and donated to by a progressive base of working people, specifically to do specific things. Krystal Ball is a fucking internet commentator. So I don't think she necessarily needs to be held to the same standard as far as, where were you in 2016 or whatever? Like, okay, sure. But just because Krystal Ball wasn't 100%, a Bernie bro in 2016, in no way makes her criticism of AOC less valid. That's just like whataboutism. Like, well, you said this, but what about in 2016 when you did that? It's like, that is not even remotely addressing the substance of Krystal Ball's actual criticism.
Yeah, she immediately just starts shrieking and changing the subject whenever, and even like she credits Emma Vigeland. At least, like I've never said those words before in my life, but hey, at least she comes in here trying to be at least like somewhat rational. And then Nomiki Konst just shrieks and continues to talk about like it was that was unhinged, bro. That was a little wild. Like I've been unhinged before. I'm not like whatever it happens, but that's definitely what happened right there. And look, 2016 was 6 years ago. Are we as the left going to tell people that over the course of 6 years, you're not allowed to politically evolve, and then you're not allowed to practice your job as a reporter or news anchor or whatever you want to describe Krystal Ball as, an online political commentator personality, whatever. That's her fucking job, right? And she does nothing to address the actual substance of the criticism. She says, I live in Queens. She says, AOC did this thing in 2019, and that if Rising was around, they definitely would have made a video about, and Krystal Ball would have supported that 100%. So self-owned right there. The last time that if she couldn't even come up with a more recent example, which was when she stood with the Hunts workers, which was still over a year ago. You know what I mean? Because we've seen less and less and less and less of this. So it's just complete ridiculous. But yeah, she has to go in all these weird directions, tangents, because she can't address the fundamental criticism, which is why is AOC not standing with workers today when it counted and not until just retroactively to boost her brand?
With this, it's Roger Ailes politics. Roger Ailes picks fights, creates fights, rides fights, turns things. And frankly, AOC, she should have responded, frankly. If she said anything, she should have been like, I'm really supportive of the union effort. Congratulations. We're really proud of everybody. And then move on. But to respond to a YouTube host who wasn't even on the left 5 years ago.
So now we have no
can't evolve, but this is clearly an exercise here. And as much as I respect her and I like her and she's my friend, I just think that these choices are really dangerous and they're hurting the movement. And in 3 or 4 years, they're not going to look great.
Such fucking pearl clutching too. It's like, oh, how dare this commentator give her opinion on something? Krystal Ball, you're doing such damage to the left. This is so dangerous for the left. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's literally gave a respectful criticism on Twitter of a powerful politician with many times more followers than Krystal, just pointing out something, literally just repeating the grievances of Christian Smalls, who was the leader or is the leader of the Amazon labor union. We're going to get to his comments on this in a second, of course. But again, just such fucking pearl clutching. Like, Krystal Ball's job is to give her opinion, to critique the left where she sees fit. That's part of being a leftist commentator, Nomiki, by the way. It's part of our jobs too, is to critique the left. Part of the job is to critique the movement that we are a part of. You can't just sit here and never ever criticize your faction of the political spectrum. Like, what kind of bullshit is that? That's how the left is strengthened, not weakened. We have to be critical of one another. We have to be introspective and say, hey, this is bullshit. We have to call bullshit where we see it. And when AOC is out here, refusing to lend her support to an important, probably the most important union movement in the country until after the fact, and then wading in to say, oh, actually, I am supportive of this after it matters, I think that's at least worth acknowledging, right? Like, how is that dangerous?
Yeah, dude. And it's also hilarious that as somebody who is a YouTube host, maybe she thinks she's extra credentials because she gets fucking spots on Fox News. But it's just like, who do you think you are? You're such a YouTube host. I'm like, what is that boomer energy from you, Nomiki? What the fuck? Like, you literally do a show that's on the internet too. Like, I hate, like, that's so like face planty. Like, I hang out around people who like think that online media is a joke. Energy, like I can't even believe that she said that on a literal YouTube show. Like, like, is she like cucking all of us? Are we all just supposed to just sit here and shut the fuck up and not do our jobs? Like, what are we supposed to do if not criticize these people that we in many instances donated money to, spend hours championing them? Well, guess what? Now I retract those hours that I spent championing them, and I'm going to open up my fucking mouth about it. I mean, it's just completely absurd. And then the whole like thing where she wants to pretend that it's somehow dangerous to criticize a politician. No, it's really not that dangerous. Oh, and I like the weird implication, like she's somehow like fucking, I don't know, jeopardizing AOC security or like, going to strengthen the alt-right. It's the same sentiment that like got everybody outraged about the Joker movie forever ago. It's like this weird kind of like leftist. I mean, we know that Nomiki's very pro-censorship. She's extremely pro-censorship. Even, I mean, she was one of the first people to jump on the Joe Rogan should be censored bandwagon, right? And that's why they love to have her on Fox News, by the way, guys. It's because she's an easy caricature on the left to knock down. People they hate having on the left, or having people on Fox News, people who do a good fucking job. So if you get invited back on and, you kind of fucked up a little bit, or you served the role that they wanted you to a little too well, that's usually especially if you're just doing random spots where you go in and argue and it's like, here's some random leftist that you don't know from anything else. Like, it is what it is. Like, if one day Gavin and I get the call to go on Fox News, we're going to go over there to make a mockery of it, not to go out there and try and like stand up there and, be like, I want critical race theory taught in every single elementary school. And I want all children taught about their gender when they're 7. Like, I may think those things, but that's what Fox News wants you to go do when you go on there. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a reason why they bring on Nomiki Konst and not Krystal Ball. Because if their viewers heard from Krystal Ball and heard her perspective, they'd say, oh, that actually sounds really reasonable. That sounds like an ideology that kind of jives with me and my ideology. Because Krystal Ball knows how to communicate with normal people. And she doesn't come off like a shrieking, pearl-clutching liberal moron like Nomiki Konst does. Again, all due respect, don't know her personally, probably a nice woman, I don't fucking know. But this is not the way the left should be presenting. And again, Krystal Ball, it's not like she came out and like out of nowhere and attacked AOC in the most ugly way possible. No, she literally just tweeted at her and said, hey, here's a clip of Christian Smalls himself on my podcast expressing some grievances with the way you handled this. That's all she did. Nomiki's the one here like fucking mauling her eyes out, screaming, getting all aggressive, super mean, calling Krystal Ball like Roger Ailes for no reason. You're the one being unnecessarily divisive. You're the one that's fostering more leftist infighting for no reason. You're doing exactly what you're accusing Krystal Ball of doing. And again, as I mentioned on our stream when all this went down in the first place, Krystal Ball has, despite whatever criticisms you may have of her, of course, Krystal Ball is not above criticism. Of course, there are valid reasons to criticize her. But one of those is not the way she talks about and approaches unionization issues, labor issues. She is one of the best commentators, one of the best voices for union issues in this entire country, let alone on the left, in the entire country, in my opinion. She was covering the Amazon labor union story years before anyone thought it would be successful. She has been a much, much better surrogate for that union than AOC ever dreamed of being. She has platformed Christian Smalls on her program, which, by the way, is way fucking bigger than Nomiki Konst's program. She has platformed those voices way more times than AOC has. So how is Krystal Ball the one that's an issue here? Again, she's actually a surrogate for these movements. She's actually giving a platform to these movement leaders. AOC's the one that's not. AOC's the one that's not wading in because she thinks it'll be politically unpopular to do so. She's the coward. She should be called out for that. And for you to sit here, Nomiki Konst, and wag your finger at Krystal Ball, who, as I said, is a better, more effective communicator and surrogate for union movements, you're just doing what you're accusing her of doing, which is unnecessarily fostering infighting and drama.
Yeah, and also I just want to clarify, because I took a shot at her for going on Fox News all the time, and we got some chats that are like, Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore are Fox News regulars. Yes, and every single time Glenn or Jimmy is invited on Fox News, they are fulfilling a fucking role. Do you think Tucker has Glenn on to talk about all the shit that he thinks is wrong with Donald Trump or the Republican Party? No. Do they have Jimmy on to talk about X, Y, or Z that's wrong with the Republican Party? No. You go on there, you get set up with something that's going to make the Democrats largely look bad, or the entire U.S. government look bad. Those are your two options usually. And those two individuals have said, okay, well, it's better for me to get this message out to those people. What they do not do is they do not go out there and make a terrible fucking caricature of the left that is easy to knock down. We actually, look, we're no fucking friends of the Jimmy Dore show. I think he hates our fucking guts, and I don't feel too fondly towards the guy anyway. So I'm we critique him whenever we fucking want to. The last time he went on Tucker Carlson, he did chef's kiss miraculously for a lot of the answers here. He pivoted the conversation. He steered it towards left-wing commentary. He made the case about how it's rigged for poor people, all these kinds of things. And that's a good case to make on Fox News. What's not a good case to make on Fox News is to go on there and maul and to be that like shrieking liberal, that pearl clutcher, that finger wagger, that just kind of embodies all of their, suspicions and, fears and,
stereotypes of the left. Yeah. Exactly. And thank you, Victor, for the $4.99. Looks like the old guard is resentful of new voices like Breaking Points that are exploding in popularity, but Breaking Points understands their audience and Majority Report doesn't. I definitely think that it has to be mentioned that there has to be some element of jealousy in just how vitriolic her delivery of this criticism is of her friend Krystal Ball, Yeah, of course there's some jealousy involved here because Breaking Points has a way bigger audience than the Nomiki Konst show. The only time Nomiki gets any views is when she's invited on the Majority Report. And yeah, I mean, that is what it is. Her own show gets like under 1,000 views a fucking clip. Like our videos outperform hers in a dramatic fashion.
And our videos compared to the rest of YouTube eat shit. We're not tooting our own horn. That we're saying that is like how you're on the Majority Report and you reached 1 million subs and yet you still can't get your own fucking show off the ground. What does that say about your commentary? We're two blowhards from the Midwest.
Yeah, give us a couple slots on Fox News. Invite us on a big show like the Majority Report once a goddamn week. We would have like 10 times the audience we have. Obviously, no one wants to talk to us because we've burned every fucking bridge there is to burn. But if we had the access to the massive platforms that Nomiki Konst did or does and has had access to, you better fucking bet your ass that we would be getting a shit ton more views than we are. But even with that advantage, Nomiki still eats fucking shit because her message is not popular. She's a commentator that really doesn't communicate well to anyone other than a very specific niche. But there is more of this video, so we can watch a bit more before again we hear from Christian Smalls himself, whose grievances Krystal Ball was merely repeating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't trust her incentives at all. And I frankly,
Justin, we're just gonna let you go and keep up our conversation. If that's
sorry,
all right.
Justin. You triggered me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think my perspective on this issue is that if you do something like Chris Smalls did about unionizing a Amazon union, and you have problems with AOC, you have the right to air those, even if like there's concern that some people in the media are going to use as a branding exercise, or even if people aren't sort of convinced about the utility of making this about or firing back at AOC. Like I think frankly, like it's the kind of heat, it's a much better heat than typically gets applied to AOC. I think it's one that could be constructive, but I mean I do agree about media incentives to basically use this as a branding opportunity.
I'm 100% behind Chris in terms of like if he has it based on just one, the fact of his enormous success, the fact that like he built this from the ground up in terms of there was as you mentioned there were benefits.
All right, so if you're 100% behind Chris, then oops, sorry, Zach. Then I imagine you're 100% behind what he had to say on this specific issue. Again, you're the one that's refusing to actually listen to Chris Small's own words while you pretend to be his ally. But when people reference and give platform to his own goddamn words, it's somehow an issue, even though you support him, which makes no fucking sense. But yeah, let's listen to this. This was a recent clip on, I think, Mehdi Hasan's show on Peacock. He asked Chris Smalls about this specific issue, and shout out, by the way, to good friend of the show, Case Study QB, for doing the awesome hard work of putting together, finding these clips and posting them on social media for channels like the Vanguard to react to. It's really, really important. It helps us out so much. But yeah, let's take a look at this clip.
Oh, and really quickly, I just want to say, shout out quickly to Mehdi Hasan, because I talked a lot of shit about him coming on to MSNBC, but if there's one good thing about it, it is nice to have somebody who is, at least tangentially committed to the leftist causes that I am, that will invite somebody like Christian Smalls onto MSNBC when he likely wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity. So don't always love his commentary, but shout out to him for facilitating this interview and exposing Christian Smalls to a lot of people who he might not have had access to.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly a more serious left voice than Nomiki Konst is. I'll just put it like that. But yeah, let's take a look at this. Again, this is what Christian Smalls himself, who, as you just saw, Emma Vigeland and Nomiki Konst claim to be 100% in support of, unless you're repeating his own goddamn words and his own goddamn grievances. And in that case, it's not okay. But yeah, here's what he had to say when asked about the specific issue by Mehdi.
Chris, Democrats like to say they are the party of the underdog, the party of labor, of workers. And yet the vast majority of elected Democrats in Congress, last time I checked, haven't said a word about your victory. How disappointed are you in the Democratic Party when it comes to the issue of labor rights?
Well, right now, there's a lot of buzz online about, who supported, who didn't. And I want to clear the air on that. They didn't support us. And that's just a fact. I know who was here on the ground with me every day. I know who came out to support us at our rallies, and it wasn't them. And it's not just them. It's a lot more people that are out there that obviously didn't show up for these workers here in Staten Island. And it's a shame that, they wait until, we get to an election and we actually are victorious to come out and show their support, something that they could have done 11 months ago when this campaign first started. So I'm just hoping that they can redeem themselves. This is a marathon. I don't have any ill will towards any of them. I just want them to do right by their constituents. We're here in New York. Doesn't matter what district you come from. Doesn't matter what district this building is in. These are all New Yorkers traveling from all boroughs. I know 8,300 of them. I know where they live. And I can tell you they absolutely represent these, the politicians that they elected. So, they all need to step up. And I'm talking to every last one of them. They all need to step up and make sure that they are taking care of these people.
There you go. So right from the fucking horse's mouth, literally, all the Crystal Ball did was repeat his own goddamn words. I'll pull up the thread just in case anyone forgot. This is all the Crystal Ball said. Here's the guy who organized the union drive talking about how you left them high and dry. These are your constituents, and you couldn't be bothered to show up until they're on the cusp of victory. Needless to say, that's a lot more goddamn polite than we are here at the Vanguard. It's also a lot more polite than Nomiki was when she was addressing Crystal's...
her good friend, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. A lot more civil, a lot more polite than Nomiki was. And again, as we just heard from Chris Smalls himself, who you guys claim to support over at the Majority Report, that's how he fucking feels. That's his experience with AOC and the squad, is that they left them high and dry. So why can we not talk about that? How is it somehow dangerous to the movement to acknowledge reality, to repeat the words, the grievances, and experiences of someone we're all supposed to be agreeing right now is a goddamn hero and a legend, Chris Smalls?